They say life can surprise you when you least expect it. I never imagined a simple favor, helping my neighbor's teenage son with his homework, would lead to something that would stir up feelings I hadn't felt in years. What he said that evening, it caught me completely off guard, left me speechless for a moment, and changed the way I saw myself. Before I begin, let me ask, from which city are you watching? I'd love to know who's out there listening to my story tonight. My name is Claire. I'm 50. Divorced, and have lived in the same quiet neighborhood in Ohio for almost 20 years. It's the kind of place where the same mailman walks, the same route the local diner still serves meatloaf every Thursday, and you can hear the crickets from your porch at night. Familiar, safe, predictable. Across the street lives my neighbor Lavra. She's a single mom raising her 16-year-old son, Ryan. I've known him since he was a gap-toothed little boy who used to wave at me from his tricycle time. Moves fast, I guess, because now he's taller than me, and always has his earbuds in, barely says more than a grunt when he passes by. But a few weeks ago, Lavra came knocking on my door late in the afternoon, looking frazzled. Her hair was still wet from a rushed shower, and she clutched a grocery bag in one hand. Claire, I'm so sorry to ask, but could you help Ryan with his math homework tonight? I've got to cover for someone at work, and he's really struggling. I hesitated for half a second, not because I didn't want to help. I used to teach middle school, and part of me missed it, but because I hadn't spent time with Ryan in years. He was always polite, but distant still. I smiled and nodded, of course. Send him over whenever he's ready. Around 6, Ryan knocked. He stood there in a hoodie 2 sizes too big and basketball shorts, holding a battered algebra textbook under one arm. Hey, he said quietly, not quite meeting my eyes. Come in, Ryan, let's set up. At the dining table we started with equations. He was rusty, but not hopeless. What struck me, though, was how tense he seemed. His hands were fidgety, his eyes darting from the book to the floor and back to me like he was worried about something. You okay? I asked at one point. He shrugged. Yeah, just tired, I guess. I didn't push. Instead, I guided him through the next problem, and slowly he started to relax. We found a rhythm. He even cracked a small smile when he solved a tricky one on his own. You've got a good mind, I said. You just need someone to remind you. He looked up at me, and for a second there was something in his expression that caught me off guard, like he was seeing me differently, like he wasn't just a teenage boy, and I wasn't just the lady across the street. You remind me of my grandma, he said, then quickly added, I mean that in a good way. She used to sit with me like this. I laughed. I'll take that as a compliment. The air felt softer after that, less awkward. We chatted while working about his favorite subjects, not math. His dream to go to design school, how he hated gym class, but loved sketching buildings in his notebook. As the sun dipped low, and the room turned amber with the glow of the lamp above us, I noticed how quiet everything else had become. It was just the 2 of us, the soft scratching of pencil on paper, and the occasional sip of tea I'd made earlier. I stood to refill my mug and asked if he wanted anything. He shook his head. When I came back, he looked up and said, I never really talked to anyone like this. I tilted my head. What do you mean? I mean, not even Mom. She's always tired, busy, and I don't really have anyone else to talk to about stuff. I sat down again, slowly. Stuff like what? His voice dropped. Like how hard everything feels sometimes. Like I'm not enough, or like I'm just annoying to everyone. My heart broke a little at that. I reached across the table and gently touched his hand. Just a moment of comfort, nothing more. You're not annoying, Ryan, you're just growing. It's hard, I know, but you matter. You really do. He stared at our hands for a moment before he whispered, thanks, Claire. There was a pause, a long one, then he said it. You make me feel seen, like not invisible, and you smell nice. I laughed. It was such an unexpected thing to say, but something in the way he said it made my cheeks warm. There wasn't anything wrong in his tone, just earnestness, innocence wrapped in something deeper. I wasn't sure what to do with the way my heart fluttered. Maybe it was just the loneliness in both of us finding a place to breathe for a moment. We didn't say much after that. I helped him finish the last couple of problems, and then he packed up. Thanks again, he said softly at the door for everything as I closed the door behind him. I stood there for a moment, the silence settling in around me, my reflection in the glass. Caught my attention a woman who hadn't felt noticed in a long time, noticed and needed. Didn't know where this little moment would lead, or if it was even meant to go anywhere, but something had shifted, not between us but inside me. Something small, something tender, something awakening. And I wasn't sure I was ready for it, but it was there. The next morning, I tried to go about my day like nothing had changed. I made my coffee, fed the cat, answered a few emails, and even went out to sweep the porch like I always did, but something lingered, a heaviness. Not a bad kind, just something that made me pause more than usual. Ryan's words echoed in my mind. You make me feel seen. It wasn't just the compliment about how I smelled or the quiet gratitude in his eyes. It was the vulnerability, the openness, the way he'd let me in. Just a little I hadn't felt that in years. I told myself not to read too much into it. Teenagers go through emotional swings. Maybe he was just looking for someone to talk to. And I just happened to be there still. It stuck with me in a way I couldn't quite explain. Later that afternoon, I was watering my plants out front when I saw Ryan come out to take out the trash. He noticed me and raised a hand. His face lit up in a way that made my heart do a funny little skip. Hey, Claire, he called. Thanks again for last night. I actually understood the stuff today in class. I smiled. I'm glad to hear that. He hesitated a moment, then crossed the street. I was wondering if you're not too busy later. Could we maybe go over some more stuff? I've got a big test next week. One looked at him, really looked. He was still just a kid in so many ways, but he carried himself like someone who wanted to be understood, not brushed aside, someone searching for anchors in a world that was probably moving too fast for him, of course. I said come by after dinner that evening. I set the table again, same 2 chairs, same lamp overhead. I even made a little plate of cookies. Maybe I went a little overboard, but I told myself it was just hospitality. That's what I'd always been good at. Making people feel comfortable. Ryan arrived, right on time, textbook in hand, and a sketch pad tucked under his arm. This time, what's that? I asked, pointing to it. Oh, just some designs I've been working on for fun. He said, a little shy. Can I see? He hesitated, then slowly slid it across the table. As I flipped through the pages, I was stunned. These weren't doodles, they were full-on building sketches, buildings' insides. Skylines, sharp, imaginative lines with delicate details. Some pages had notes scribbled in the margins like ideas. He couldn't wait to hold on to Ryan. These are incredible. Have you shown these to anyone? He shook his head. Not really. I don't think anyone would care. I care, I said without thinking. And you should be proud of this. You've got real talent. He blushed, the kind of deep, unfiltered pride you only see in someone who isn't used to being praised. We worked through his math again, and like before we slipped into a comfortable rhythm. But this time the air between us felt different. More open, like the walls had come down a little more. At one point he looked up and said, I used to think you were kind of scary. That made me laugh. Scary? Well, not like in a bad way, just you always seemed so put together, like you had everything figured out. I raised an eyebrow. Let me tell you a secret. I've been winging it for years. He chuckled. You hide it well. We kept talking about growing up, about his mom working double shifts, about how hard it was, sometimes feeling like you're on your own. I didn't tell him this, but in some ways I knew exactly how he felt. I used to think adults had all the answers, he said quietly, but I don't think that's true anymore. I nodded. It's not. We're all just trying to do the best we can. Some days we get it right, some days we don't. There was a long pause, the kind that doesn't feel awkward, just full. I wish more people talk to me like you do, he said. Finally, like how, like I'm not a problem to be solved. Like I'm just me that hit me hard, because that's exactly how I'd felt for so long, like a name on a form, a voice in the background, not seen, not really. And now here. We were 2 people across a table, both carrying things we didn't say out loud. When he stood to leave that night, he lingered at the door again. Can I come back tomorrow? He asked, his voice quieter than usual. I met his eyes and nodded anytime. Ryan really when he walked down the steps and into the night. I stayed by the door for a long while the house was quiet again. The warmth of the evening still clung to the air. I touched the back of the chair. He'd just been sitting in something had shifted again. This time in a way that felt grounding, like we both understood the limits, the lines. And still we chose to show up day after. Day one evening he brought over a small envelope. "It's a thank you." He said don't open it until I leave when he was gone. I sat down and opened it slowly. Inside was a hand-drawn card, one of his buildings sketched out in beautiful detail, and a message. Written in careful, slanted handwriting to Claire, "You reminded me what it feels like to matter. I hope I can be that for someone else someday. Thank you for seeing me." I stared at it for a long time, tears prickling at the corners of my eyes. I pressed the card to my chest and closed my eyes. In that moment, I didn't feel old. I didn't feel invisible. I felt real and alive and quietly grateful for this strange, tender friendship that had grown from something as simple as helping with homework. It wasn't a love story, not in the way people would assume, but it was something just as rare, a story of being seen and of seeing someone else in return. Summer gave way to the soft rustle of early fall, and with it came a certain stillness that made everything feel like it was shifting quietly, deeply. The air got cooler, the days a little shorter. Ryan started his junior year, and I noticed the way he walked with more confidence. The way he stood taller. He still came by in the evenings when he could, but it was less frequent now. School was busier, life was moving forward, and that was okay. We'd settled into something that didn't need defining. It wasn't motherly, it wasn't romantic, it was its own strange, beautiful shape, a bond that had formed in silence and sincerity without either of us needing to ask for more than what we gave. One evening, after a couple of weeks without a visit, Ryan knocked on my door. When I opened it, he looked different, not in the way teens normally change, but in his expression. He looked older, somehow thoughtful. "Got a minute?" he asked. I nodded and stepped aside. He walked in, looked around, and smiled faintly. "Feels like it's been forever," he said, setting his backpack down. I was starting to wonder if I'd scared you off with too much algebra, I joked. He chuckled and sat at the table, but didn't pull out any books. "I actually came because I wanted to talk to you," he said. "Really talk." I sat across from him, sensing something serious. He reached into his bag and pulled out a thick folder. "This is my portfolio. I'm applying to a design camp next summer in New York. Full scholarship." "That's amazing, Ryan." I reached for it, flipping through the sketches, more refined, more confident, more alive than ever. "I wouldn't have done it if it weren't for you," he said quietly. "You're the first person who ever told me my work was worth something." Emotion welled up in my chest. I wanted to say the right thing, but I didn't want to cheapen the moment with a cliché. So I simply said, "I'm proud of you." He looked at me with a softness. "I'll never forget. I hope you know you changed something in me for good." Tears filled my eyes, and I didn't look away. "You changed me too," I whispered. We sat there in the quiet glow of the lamp for a long while. Two people at different points in life, brought together not by circumstance, but by attention, by listening, by kindness. Eventually, he stood up. "I won't be coming around as much," he said. "School, the application, everything's getting intense. But I wanted you to know that I'll never forget this, us." I walked him to the door. He turned one last time and gave me a look that said more than either of us could put into words. "Take care of yourself. Claire, you too, Ryan." And then he was gone. The silence after he left wasn't empty. It was full of everything we shared, of all the quiet conversations, the glances, the healing. I sat back down at the table, ran my hand across the wood and smiled. There's a certain kind of love that doesn't need to last forever. To be real, a connection that doesn't have a name, but leaves something permanent in its place. It came into my life when I didn't even know I needed someone, and now in the quiet of my home, I felt it. Not loneliness, but peace.